just had that mentality is like, how do I stay healthy enough to stay on the teams and keep going? Well, that's great. You want guys with that mentality, but as I got older and last few years or so, I got to a point I stopped giving guys options. I'm like, you need to go see the counselor.
Return Roots Podcast. Welcome to the show. Today we bring you Marcus Holan. He did a lot. He's retiring from the Marine Corps with a lot of years in MARSOC, and he's currently going through the process. And he was coming to teach us what he's learned so far. Without further ado, Marcus, welcome to the show.
All right, thanks, Yogi. Thanks, Chris. Appreciate you guys having me here.
Yeah, brother. Thanks for coming on here. So, like, you're in the midst of your transition today, and what is it like? How long have you been in? You said about 21 years, right? Offline.
Yeah, about 21 years, and I am barely a week removed. Getting that DD-214, and as you mentioned, it's the early stages of the whole process, the ups and downs, and the emotions and the feelings with it.
Man, yeah, that's definitely a really one of the most crucial parts of your transition is like that last few months because you got a lot of steps to do. Before we dive too far into this, hey, everybody that's listening, I want you to go ahead, hit like, subscribe, share this to veterans, share this to transitioning service members so that way they can also learn from those who are going through the transition or who have already transitioned out of the military. Hey, Marcus, what is the best way to get a hold of you, brother?
I got my LinkedIn profile. So as a older guy, I'm learning the social media realm now. So that's primary focus I use for now, building my network, and that's how I found you guys. So.
So can you share with everyone, speaking about the transition process, how you went through to prepare for yourself? What program did you use in order to prepare, and how we got connected?
Okay, yeah, absolutely. So for us, we have a couple options, and there are many programs out there for vets in transition, and it's amazing what's out there. I went with SOTF, Special Operations Transition Foundation, and I've been going through them for a good while. During that point, I was just kind of pulled left and right, focus on this, focus on that, and I never spent a lot of time really focused on building my LinkedIn and my network. I had my page set up, but I never really expanded a whole lot. I didn't interact a lot on LinkedIn. Well, that all changed about a week ago when I got out, and I had PMP training lined up this week. I really jumped into it, and my mentors, my coaches, and they're always just, they push us, they give you a lot of advice, and like, you need to do this. So I got to that point where I could focus on it. Started posting. I got a post out there, big celebration. I was like, hey, I got my DD-214. All right, I'm ready for the next adventure in life. And like that got me the most exposure up till that point than I've had anything else I've commented on, posted, whatever. Like that was the one. I was like, okay, I can make this the norm, and I'm gonna start getting my name out there, getting a little bit more exposure.
And with that, I want to give a big shout out to Abigail Manning, Joshua Johnson. Anyone else that you want to give a shout out to from the organization?
Uh, Bobby, yep, Bobby as well, working with him, um, and Carrie as well. So great group of people. Can't say enough about them. We were talking a little bit off camera about Abigail. Awesome. She still keeps in contact with me today. Still encouraged me, and really pushed me. I think that's kind of the big thing too. With tell me if you agree or not, but we don't, as vets or as military members, we don't put ourselves out there as much, or we don't give ourselves enough credit. Well, these coaches, these programs, they know what we can bring to the table. And so they go at it. They're like, "We're going to get this out of you. You will show the people what you who
Yeah.
you are and what values you
Agreed.
bring." Like, okay,
Yeah, it's kind of like it's kind of like we're just like really, you know, as military veteran and military members still, right? We're always taught to be kind of guarded whenever it comes to social media. So then when we're about to get
yeah,
out, we're like, oh, well, shoot, I got to learn all this different things about social media. So, I mean, hey, welcome to the club, brother. You're starting to learn all this stuff. One tip for
yeah,
all of our listeners that are out there, if you're looking at your profile and you build your LinkedIn, right? And you put in there that you were in the Marine Corps, you were in the Air Force, were in the Navy, or whatever branch you were in, right? Make sure you add the correct uh, company. So it's going to be listed as a company, but make sure you're adding the correct branch that has 1 million plus subscribers. Because if there's any recruiters out there looking for a particular demographic, they're going to need to make sure that that's in there. So when you're updating your guys' LinkedIn profile, make sure you guys have that stuff in there. Hey, Marcus, what was the funnest thing about the whole entire building your building your LinkedIn? What did you have fun with on that?
I looked at it as work. I wasn't fully invested at first, but I think this last week I think I added about 90 people to my network. And I sounds a little silly, but that part was actually fun to me because it was like nonstop and like, I saw the fruits of my labors from before. So, like I mentioned, I wasn't fully committed to it. I was, but I wasn't. And then this week is just kind of full bore, and it's not so much like looking for like trying to talk to like somebody in HR and look for this job or whatever. Like I'm still seeing what's out there, and I mean, I've connected with numerous people, all kinds of different people all over the place, all over the world, and that part's been fun.
Yeah, I know when I was building my profile, I used the pronoun dude on my profile, and I get a lot of comments
Yeah.
on that. They're always like, "Oh man, I didn't even think about doing that." And I'm just kind of I saw that I was like, "Oh, pronoun dude," you know. And I had a sailor once upon a time call me uh, dude, and I looked at him and I'm like, "That's senior chief dude to you." Now it's just dude. Now it's just dude. No, that's good, man.
Mhm.
And I like how you talked about your LinkedIn profile as work because honestly, that's how we need to look at our LinkedIn profile. It's a job. It's a job to set up your
Mhm.
profile correctly. And I would imagine that the program that you went through helped you immensely in getting your stuff set up, right?
Yeah, no, absolutely. I I mean, mine would have just looked like junk if it wasn't for them. Um, um, and you get it kind of reoccurring. It's not just like one and done, right? So a little bit from Abigail, a little bit from Carrie, like just kind of touching it up, and like here's a little bit more advice, and here's some handouts for it, and so you clean it up, and that is your messaging, really, like to the world, whether to the private sector for a job or just a network like we're talking about, right? So you want to ensure that it's professional. um, and I've seen that a little bit, but I am thankful that LinkedIn is treated as that professional platform, and not because sometimes you'll get certain things in there from certain people. I'm like, all right, like this is not like Facebook or whatever, right? Like I'm using this
Hmm.
professionally to get my image out there, to meet other people, um, and et cetera with that. But there's a lot that goes into it, and I'm thankful for the coaches that they've helped me clean it up, and hopefully it looks good. I think it does.
It does. And then with that, let's dive back a little bit more, right? What with this experience, what would you tell yourself if you were back 17, 18-year old before you joined the military and you were about to go join? What advice would you give yourself to be successful?
I think life is very much about experiences. We come into the military at a young age. We have some life experience where most people consider us an adult coming into the military, but you have not even that much. You have zero exposure to the military, right? So then you're putting one life on pause and you're starting another one. Uh, I'm a big fan of using the word growth, and growing through experiences, good or bad, and everything. Um, but it kind of amazed me how quick everything went. And you hear that a little bit here and there, and they're like, "Oh, the years go fast, years goes fast." Well, yeah, 20 years of my life went fast. And now I'm kind of the reverse. I'm pausing, stopping really this life, and kind of I went back to my roots. I went back home, small town USA. I'm kind of resetting myself, but I think approaches need to be kind of a stepping block. If you are able to kind of identify what is that big goal that you want to get to, and that goal can change and it can shift, and it's going to vary because as you grow into who you are, then your perspective and your values are going to adjust along with it. And that's kind of how it went with me, per se. And then as far as like the transition and everything, um, you need a plan. You don't have to stick with it. Be flexible. Be able to adjust to it. Um, and for me, I had a little time left on contract. I was just past 20, and just kind of how the last year and a half went for me and life stuff and everything. And I was ready. And my mentors that I watched retire 20 something, 30 years in, became a contractor at GS afterwards. And they're like, when it's your time, you're going to know. Said it'll hit people at different times. It could be 4 years, 8 years, 10 years. Um, some of those guys, Master Guns that I worked with, he's like, I didn't plan doing 30. And I was like, I planned on doing 4 and I was going to get out. Well, 20 years later, 20 years later, I finally did it. But I mean, make no mistake, my parents are happy. I mean, I'm better late than never, but I think they're happy I'm finally out of the military. They don't have to worry about me as much. So,
Hmm.
Yeah, I know when it was time for me to get out, it was, my situation was medical, and I had the legs to go further than I did, and it was kind of a real kick in the pants because I knew without a doubt I wanted to stay in. I really loved what I did. I loved guiding and mentoring junior officers and enlisted. I wasn't sour on it, but at the end, you know, it's kind of funny because I was in Japan, and then when I went to the States, it was a totally different story. It's like, okay, well, now I have no sailors here. I'm not responsible for any sailors. And I have all these medical appointments trying to figure out all my medical stuff. And the Navy saying, sorry, you can't stay in anymore. So I had to like kind of shift my mindset, man. And what was it for you that got you to change your mindset to that transitioning mindset?
yeah, absolutely. I watched a lot of my buddies. We kind of joked that we're now the old guys because I think we had about 7 master sergeants in the S3 because we're all getting ready to retire. But all those guys were planning off of their 20-year mark, and I still had time left, like I mentioned. But it was just for me, I felt bad, like I wasn't creating positive change or positive impact to people anymore. And that's on me. As a leader, I towards the end there, I think I became a bad leader. And I had stuff going on, and I was not making a good impact on the organization, on the community. And things have changed and everything, and then that just kind of set in with me, and that mixed with, like, I just felt like I worked hard for 20 years, and fought in a couple places, throughout the world, and you get tired of that and you get wore down, and but it's also not all about me, though, because a lot of people, I come back to a small town and people are like, "Oh, thank you for your service, thank you for your sacrifice." It's also the families that are sacrificing, and probably more so than the service member. You know, um, my mom's been worried sick for 20 years. I'm divorced. My kids suffered during, during my service and everything. And the families, they suffer and they sacrifice probably more than we do, because we're out there, we're doing our jobs. We're with extraordinary people that are willing to do whatever it takes to protect each other, and so I consider ourselves fine because we're in each other's hands. But it was just kind of the realization that there was a lot of negative effects at home too. And all that kind of combined, and that was kind of my trigger. I was like, okay, I need to go.
Now we're here, right? How do you feel that you prepared? Um, would you go back and say, hey, I should have started this process 24 months before I getting out? Are you happy with the timeline that you used?
um I mean, probably more so having a better plan, an exit strategy. That would be my big advice for people that are preparing to, whether it's retirement or just getting out. Plan in advance. Yeah, and you mentioned 24 months, like, absolutely. There's so much stuff that you have to get ready for it. I'm not regretting my decision by any means, but I gave myself 8 months. I was kind of looking at the dates and calculating this and that and looking at the pros and cons to it, and I was like, I can do it. I'm ready to go. So, for me, it was a full sprint for the most part,
Hmm.
and being coming from where I worked, um, they gave me the opportunity to take some time, focus on myself. That I was able to manage things a lot better, a lot smoother. Because I come to work and they're like, "We have your replacement. You have all this stuff going on, and go take care of it." I'm like, okay. And I think the biggest benefit of that is I kind of went through the emotional roller coaster a little bit earlier, prior to that all starting once I got out, if that makes sense.
That makes sense.
Like, you get stuck in yourself, kind of get down, and then you're like, do I have a purpose anymore? Like, I don't know what to do with my hands. Like,
What do I do with these things?
No more
and
knife hands
so,
for you.
yeah, it, yeah, so I kind of laid around, got stuck in my own head a little bit at times, and I was productive at other times, and just kind of, you know, emotional changes and mood swings, and I'm like, what the hell? And so I once I got out, once I was done, I went and I saw the kids for the night, and then I hit the road. I didn't waste any time, and I came back out to Nebraska, and I called one of my good friends. I was on two teams with him, and got a little bit of advice from him. I texted him a couple days prior and say, "Hey, yeah, absolutely, give me a call." And that's one of the things that he said he went through. He's like, he said, like, going through the motions. He was always like reaching back, checking on the guys. Same thing he's done for 20 years. Um, and then just added stress to him and his relationship with his wife and everything stuff. And then he's like, eventually over time, I got over it. And he's like, you're gonna be so happy. He's like, just wait until that anxiety is just lifts away. He's like, you were just going to be a new person and just so happy and everything, and that was awesome. He's like, it took me a couple months, and so I'm looking forward to that. I still do have that anxiety. There's certain things that I haven't learned to let go yet. You know, it's easy for us to be professionals, or if I'm saying that right, perfectionists, because we strive so hard to do good things, and no, don't make mistakes, like all this.
Yeah, we're taught over and over our actions have immediate effect on people's
Yeah.
lives. Over and over again. We're taught that over and over again. And I'm obviously not a MARSOC guy, but I'm an aviation guy, and I'll tell you what, right now, man, it was a high level of
Hmm.
stress because of that fact that if I did something wrong on this aircraft, somebody could potentially
Yeah.
die. And I don't want to speak for Yogi, but I know he also has that particular. He's one of the life saving equipment guys, and his job is, if he doesn't do his job correctly, that seat's not going to get them to the
Hmm.
ground. So it's so crazy. And you mentioned that anxiety after getting out, man. It's still, I still have it. It comes in waves, and it's kind of like, what am I doing? And bro, like, I don't need to work.
Yeah.
What I need to do is continue on and figure out my transition. And bro, it comes in waves, the anxiety. It's like, am I doing enough? Am I being too hard on myself? It's
Yeah. And you're just so used to doing it over the years, and just having that mentality. And kind of go back to one of your previous questions and my conversation. One of my buddies, he's like, your health and your happiness is not worth what you put yourself through. He's like, that needs to be your focus now moving forward.
And then not just that, I mean, you mentioned about that, the health, right? How much time during your entire career did you actually focus on your health, right? And how much of that time, now that you're going down this slope, right? How has that, have you noticed that you're actually starting to focus on that, and how many things have triggered since then?
Yeah, I think I've actually focused on my health twice in 20 years. And the second time was last summer when I was getting ready to get out. um, yeah, like being fortunate enough to be part of a great organization that MARSOC is, um, where they take care of people. Um, you know, I've worked for or worked alongside conventional forces after I came over, and there's a big difference. Um, there really is. Even though some guys are going to complain about the community that are in it at the time, but in comparison, they're hands down take so much better care with your people. But um, it probably took me 10 years to go talk about effects from combat. You know. Um, we just had that mentality is like, how do I stay healthy enough to stay on the teams and keep going? Well, that's great. You want guys with that mentality, but as I got older and last few years or so, I got to a point I stopped giving guys options. I'm like, you need to go see the counselor. You need to go to medical. I don't care. You need time off, you're going to do that. Because I saw how much it ran me down. And I saw other people that we've had stuff in our community that hit the news, and it was the effects of guys not taking care of themselves. And I think it's important for a leader to realize that, like, you're responsible for that mentality and that culture within your organization. Like, we can say we take care of ourselves as a military branch, but if we're not following through with it, and we're not actually invested in our people, then we're not real leaders. We're just, you know.
Yeah, you said it pretty good there where you're like, hey, we concentrate on ourselves enough to pretty much continue on the mission, put some duct tape and some band-aids over it, some vitamin M, and we just keep moving forward, right? And it's true, man. Like, and you know, I know after I kind of sat down and I, started going, well, shoot, Chris, you don't really have to work. There's a phase, right? Once you're out, you find a job, you're really working at it, and then you're like, Chris, what are you doing? You're going to be like, Marcus, what are you
Yeah.
doing? Why are you pushing yourself so hard? Listen to yourself. And uh, I I started feeling more aches and pains because I was just putting duct tape over it and moving forward. So that whole entire sitting down and listening to your body, and because it's not just the jumping out of airplanes that you did, or run around on the flight deck for us, or doing all the other fun things that we got to do. It's the anxiety of everything, and then once you let go of like that whole entire, I gotta be ready for the mission, your body's like, okay, well, hey,
Yeah.
you don't have to be ready for the mission anymore. Your knees need some
Yeah.
attention. Your arm gets a sharp jab every single time you move it around. Oh man, every time I type things, it starts to hurt. And it's funny how that starts to happen.
Yeah.
And it's real. And for those who are going through the transition right now, that's why it's super important to
Hmm.
take care of your medical stuff before you get out of the door.
Yeah, because your mission now becomes you and your family, um, and a lot of people talk about it. I'm sure we'll talk about the VA process and everything, and that's a big aspect to it too. Is I'm not saying just go document stuff to document it. Like, go get treated for things that you need to get treated. Um, don't try to tough it out too much. Sometimes you got to suck it up a little bit, but make sure you're doing the right things along your career so you can sustain yourself for the long term. But you also have to look, what's life after the military? And I already dealt with it this last week from all the driving and everything I did and travel, and my back just locked up on me again. And it took me a week to fix it. And I was talking to my dad the other night. We were out as a family, and he was kind of asking questions about the resources we had and this and that, and us telling all the wonderful contractors and coaches and all this that we have available to us. I'm like, it took me all week to get my back to actually let me move again. I said I
Yeah,
probably could have had that fixed in a day back at the battalion.
seriously.
You don't have I don't have a physical therapist where I can walk to the other end of the gym and be like, I hurt myself, and we're like, okay, we'll fix you up. You don't have that anymore.
Yeah, and it's also, I mean, hey, it's good, man. We had our time in. We're going to be able to enjoy more of the family stuff. So, I mean, it's a trade-off, man. You don't have all that action stuff anymore. And I mean, sometimes I miss it, man. Looking back, and
Yeah.
I remember, you're gonna remember the hard times and be like, man, those are great. Um, while you were transitioning, man, uh, was there any kind of like content or media that you were digesting, and would you recommend transitioning service members to digest?
It kind of depends on like how well I was like balancing things. So um going back to, I think I had a great environment with my buddies who were all around that same bubble for retirement. So we did really good networking and passing information along to each other, right? A lot of the guys went to the Honor Foundation, another great program. I did SODIF. I was going to do both, and I just couldn't really. I didn't want to manage the workload for both of them, but I do recommend both of them, and they provided a lot of that I needed but I did incorporate some other media for myself that was kind of hand in hand with that transition, kind of getting a different mentality. You know, Atomic Habits, I think, is a good book, regardless of how you want to apply that. I think I've read it about 3 times. Another good one that was recommended to me was Never Eat Alone. I actually haven't gotten to it yet, but I've heard great things about that. Probably my top two, and then um, Simon
Yes,
Sinek,
one of my
Start with
favorite
Why.
ones.
Yeah, good one. So another one, I started it and I haven't gotten through it yet. So, but those are probably my top three.
You know, for a Marine, you're quite well read.
Was that for you?
Thank you, thank you. I try to be anyways, So don't let that title, don't let that fool you.
Yeah, I I've read all the books that you put on there, and those are all really phenomenal books. But when I say read, I want you guys to understand that I digest books through audio. And so, I mean, for example, normally I'm on my excavator for a couple hours and playing around in the dirt because that's what I do for fun.
Because you can, yeah.
Yeah, because I can. And I'll throw a book on, or if I'm going for a run, because sometimes I try to train for marathons if I don't break myself. Um, I break myself a lot more now.
Yeah,
But I listen to a lot of audiobooks, so that's like my best tip for people that are listening to download Libby. Libby is a free app that you could go to your library, get a library card, load it into Libby, and then you could access all the library books. You don't have
nice.
to wait. Some of them don't release right away. So, I mean, hey, I'm not saying that you should do this, but I know some people that exchange library cards on Libby and then they get even more library access.
Sneaky.
Hey, I'm not recommending that to nobody, but I'm just saying that I've heard of it being done.
Yeah, military guys
Um,
wouldn't do that, would they?
no,
No.
we would never work the system.
Not at all. Not at all. So, yeah, but I think if to expand a little bit more with that, I mentioned a lot of it was the network we had, and that kind of ties into LinkedIn, and there's just so much out there now. Um, there was definitely a time I felt overwhelmed with it, but I would much rather have that than what my perception was when I was younger, watching guys get out of the military. They do their 4 years, like, thanks for fighting the war, bye. And that seemed like all it was, and how quick it was, and those guys were gone. I'm like, what the hell? And I know a
Yeah,
couple guys that they came back in a couple years later because they didn't have that help transitioning like we do now.
you know that's a pretty good point, man. And it's funny that you mentioned that because the military is looking for people to come back in out of retirement.
Yeah.
And I I look at that. Well, one, I'm too broke for them to even let me come back in.
Yeah.
Um, I look at that and I'm like, man, that is. I mean, hey, that's an option for some people. Um, I got a taste of the outside, man. I don't think I want to go back in. Um,
Yeah. Oh,
so yeah, brother. I, I I really do appreciate you, man, coming on here and hanging out with us, dude. And like seriously, just to hear that you went through this this SOFA program and you went through Abigail's training and you sat with Josh Johnson and the other people that you mentioned as well. And you just kind of really gave some credit to these programs to some other special operators that are going to be going through. So I really do appreciate you speaking out while you're in the midst of it, just kind of fresh off the block, and really giving you your take on it. I think that this is going to be awesome for you, and everybody that's listening to this, like, check out Marcus. Go onto his LinkedIn profile and send him a friend request. I mean, I started a new thing, so anybody that gets a friend request from me is going to get a request for a joke. So I started off. I told Yogi, I'm like, hey man, I don't like these AIs that are like, I get hit up on LinkedIn all the time. So beware, you're gonna get hit up on LinkedIn all the time. So I'm like, what's something that I could get people to say, oh, this guy has a cool podcast, but also not be kind of needy. I was like, hey, I love jokes. I want to hear some really good jokes. I want to ask for people to give me good jokes. So you guys keep telling me your jokes, and maybe at the end of some podcasts, I'll start reading these jokes off. What do you guys say?
Sounds good.
And with that, Marcus, we want to make sure that we want to track your transition, if that's okay with you. And
Yeah,
as things come
absolutely.
up, we would love to have a further conversation, and new updates, and share that with our audience to be able to track. I mean, because you're still in, right? You don't retire until at the time of this recording. You won't be retired. By the time this recording airs, you will be retired, right? But we want to
I
share
see
with
what you
our.
did there,
I
Yogi.
know.
You did really good with the words, bro. You're a master with words.
But
I can't
we,
let you get away with that one.
I know, but we want to make sure that we share that experience, because just sharing it where you're at right now, it's going to be a different perspective than where you were at, where you will be at in a couple months, and
Mhm.
compared to where you were at, what, 8 months ago when you first started. So we would love to keep that up, and then let us know. But thank you so much for coming. Thank you for being flexible. Thank you for letting us be your first podcast. I see that you're also friends
Yep,
with
absolutely.
Tab, and Tab is amazing. So, but anything else?
Yeah, she is. She's awesome.
Yeah, so yeah, I want to say, it's it really like it was an honor for me. You guys reaching out and asked me to be on here, and I think above all else, one thing I'm definitely gonna continue during this transition, my future life is that service of others, and you know a lot, yeah, there's definitely gonna be a lot of exposure, but at the same time, it's like, can I help people as well?
Hmm.
And that's really what it comes down to. If my story or my advice will reach somebody out there, and they're like, oh yeah, he talked about the mental aspect or this and that and whatever. If something sticks with them and it can help them, like, all about it. Because the world, it's a big world out there for me. It's going to be, I like to say, it's my next adventure. And, it's a journey in life, and there's so much out there. And I know for a fact there's going to be some ups and downs, but like you mentioned, Yogi, like by the time this airs, like, I hope I kind of got over that roller coaster a little bit and kind of figure it out, and, and go from there. So I'm looking forward to it, and definitely keep you guys informed.
Yeah, brother.
And most of all, we want you to know that you're not alone. You were here. Anything you need, any way we can support, we're here for that. Because you mentioned that you already went through some of that emotional roller coaster as you transition. You started your transition early, but I think there's going to be another one that's going to be coming
Oh yeah.
even more. And then know that we're always here. We're just a phone call away. We're a message away. So we're here for you, bro.
Absolutely, man. I appreciate that.
Hey, everybody that's listening to this, check out Marcus's profile. Like I said, you can see it scrolling down on the bottom if you're watching video. If you are not watching video, it is Marcus Tech Holan. Oh man, you got a bunch of things at the end. So just Google him or look him up on LinkedIn. You gotta fix that on your LinkedIn, bro. Hey, but everybody else that's out there, yeah, I mean,
We
you
got a
got a
bunch of
bunch of
numbers
stuff on
with
there.
it.
Hey, it's really easy to fix. I'll show you how to do it really quick. But everybody else that's listening out there, hey, it is your transition. It is not all rainbows and unicorns out there. Take charge of it. Mill to vet. Out.